Thanks for checking out this episode of the Rookie Big Board. If you enjoy it, make sure to give the video a like, subscribe to the channel. You can check out all of my rankings, the 2022 Rookie Big Board, and all of the rest of my work at patreon.com/theFFeducator. This is episode 28 of the Rookie Big Board podcast. I am your host, Matt Hicks, the FF Educator, and I am fired up for this episode because I am doing a way too early, but never early enough, rookie mock draft. We're going to do one round for the 2022 class, and I'm not just firing off a mock draft, pulling it out of thin air. I'm basing this off of I now have 30 completed summer scouting evaluations, so I feel like I'm starting to get a good idea of the characteristic and the scope of this class, and I want to be able to relay that to you all. So I'm not going to necessarily read off the top 12 players on the Rookie Big Board right now. This is not a rankings episode. I'm combining my top 12 players with the consensus, what I'm hearing out there, what I feel is value trends for different players. So this is going to reflect both value trends, the individual Rookie Big Board ratings that I've already assigned to the 30 players with completed summer scouting evaluations, and just give you an overall idea of the strength of the class. That's the question I keep hearing the most. What's the strength of the class? What's the value of my 2022 rookie pick right now? And that's the purpose of this episode. This is a Superflex PPR non-tight end premium mock draft, and we're going to start here with Spencer Rattler at the 101. In the Superflex, right now, Spencer Rattler is the guy that for most folks they're going to have pegged at the 101. Now, I want to be clear with that being said, Spencer Rattler is not an automatic lock here to be the 101 in next year's class, all right? I don't have the same level of confidence in Spencer Rattler being the 101 as I did with Trevor Lawrence being the 101 last year, just to give you a little bit of a comparison. That being said, Spencer Rattler has all the tools to project and ascend into a locked and loaded 101 status by October, November, December, or perhaps we will go into the 2022 rookie mock draft season without consensus at the quarterback position, which is something we have experienced in the past, but not in the recent past. So specifically coming back to Spencer Rattler here, I mentioned he's got all the tools. His arm strength is evident on tape. He has great footwork, nice, solid mechanics, which is always encouraging. He's mobile. He improvises, he extends the play, but we really only have half of a good season of tape for Spencer Rattler at Oklahoma. He struggled at the beginning of last season. Remember, 2020 was his first season starting. So we're looking here for a big 2021 college season, and certainly he has the ability to do that. He's got some great weapons there, Marvin Mims, and a whole cast of talented, highly recruited wideouts there. A solid running game to help support him, and of course, he's going to be passing behind one of the best offensive lines in the country, and he's going to be tearing up Big 12 defenses. So Spencer Rattler is on the fast track to be a Heisman candidate here, and he's on the fast track to be the 101 in rookie drafts in 2022. With the 102 here, we're going to move on to Sam Howell. Now, I want to point out, too, similar to Spencer Rattler, don't think Sam Howell is the cut and clear, safe, high floor prospect that necessarily everybody chalks him up to. Now, I do think he has a high floor when it comes to being a prospect. I'm wondering how high the ceiling is for Sam Howell. Now, he's 6'1", 225, and he is an exciting film review. The arm talent is evident on tape. He pushes the ball 45 yards downfield with touch and anticipation. At times, he works the deep third of the field, and it is so fantastic and so exciting. He is also willing to improvise when the play breaks down, but he doesn't have that same level of pure athleticism. He's mobile enough to execute design runs. He's got a little bit more meat on him, 225, and he runs with a little bit more confidence maybe than somebody like Spencer Rattler would scrambling. Not that there's anything wrong with the way that Spencer Rattler moves outside of the pocket. Sam Howell, though, a little bit more confidence. He's willing to take on hits a little bit more, maybe a la Trey Lance if you're familiar with his tape, right? So Howell, he's a little bit, he's still got that dual athlete, but he's a little bit more leading into the pocket presence. I did not love his footwork in the pocket. I think he needs to clean that up. I thought he felt pressure a little bit too easily in the pocket looking at his 2020 tape. So he's got the tools to possibly be the QB1, but I also could see some of these guys with higher ceilings ending up actually getting drafted higher than Sam Howell. But I feel like Howell is a pretty good lock to be a first-round NFL draft pick, and so in a Superflex draft, 102 feels pretty good. And I don't think either of those picks are surprising for most folks honed in on the rookie class next year to have Spencer Rattler and Sam Howell come off the board. But I think after the 102 is when things start to get interesting here. And I'm going to go out on a little bit of a limb here, and I'm going to actually have a wide receiver come off the board third here. And so he's fourth overall on the rookie big board. I have a quarterback that I have a little bit higher, but consensus is not there. So instead, I'm going to go with Chris Alave. And I just added Chris Olave's evaluation here over the weekend, and it is exciting to say the least. You know, Alave, you look here on the wide receiver notes, every player on the note board has a full breakdown, their strengths, their weaknesses, the summary, and individual notes for each of their traits here. And I'm just reading right off of what I have here for Chris Alave. Well-rounded wideout that shocked many when he decided to return to Ohio State for his final collegiate season, because I thought he had the potential to be a first-round pick here in this 2020 and 2021 NFL draft, I should say. Tremendously consistent hands, and they're complemented by a wide catch radius. He's got good size, not ridiculous size, but he's got good size here, coming in at 6'1", 185, I believe. He wins off the line of scrimmage, great release, great first step off of press there. And he navigates downfield with tantalizing control. I mean, he is fluid, but he moves around the entire field. He plays under control. It's a fantastic combination with his quickness. I think Alave has the ability to be a Pro Bowl wideout. He has one of the highest PPV values on the rookie big board right now. If you're not familiar with that, that's potential player value. I use an NFL draft measurement of current player value and potential player value to give an idea of where a player currently is and what their pro potential is. And Chris Olave's Pro Bowl projection here for PPV is one of the highest on the rookie big board. So I'm high on Chris Olave, so high that I think in a class that will be dominated by the wide receiver position, I think it's realistic to think that Chris Olave could come off the board before any of the running backs next year, despite the positional advantage that running backs do get. And I do adjust for positional value on the rookie big board. Chris Olave still, he grades out so high that he still beats out running backs on the rookie big board and some of the second tier quarterbacks here. So let's go ahead. I just mentioned it. Running backs have a positional bonus. And I know I am not the only one on this hill, but I am higher right now on Isaiah Spiller than Breece Hall. That is not a consensus opinion, but Spiller, he is smooth, and he comes with good size. 6'1", 225, he's smooth, he's a methodical back, he has pops of excitement throughout his film, he has great vision is huge, it's weighted heavily in my formula for the running back position. He consistently reads open gaps and creates his own space in between the tackles. That is huge for me. He has clean footwork. He has good lateral movement. I think he has the ability to be an effective goal line back in the NFL. He's physical. He's willing to take on SEC linebackers. He demonstrates straight line speed and consistent explosiveness. Now, the only hesitation I have here with Spiller, it always feels like I'm waiting for a second gear. I'm waiting to see him hit the next level. So I do worry a little bit about that, but I think in next year's draft class here, looking at what we have right now as a total body in this exact moment in July 2021, I am confident having Isaiah Spiller slightly higher than two other running backs who I all consider to be tier 1 running backs at this point in time. So let's go ahead and jump into the 105 here, which is Breece Hall. Now, Breece Hall is actually third on the rookie big board for the running back position specifically right now, and I mentioned I'm not reading right down my rankings, but consensus has Breece Hall as running back 1. He's running back 3 for me, so I slotted him in as running back 2 here in this mock draft. Now, Hall is the consensus running back 1 because he has huge production, over 1,500 yards for Iowa State, and they fed him the ball last year. They're going to feed him the ball again. He's a patient runner. He explodes through space that is created for him. He's an athletic back that runs off tackle well. He shows a clean jump step, glides around the field at times. He's got good vision. He recognizes when it's appropriate to cut back in reverse direction. However, with Breece Hall in particular, I'm worried about his athletic testing to a degree. He's not a burner by any means. He does speed up running well downhill, but the other red flag, and I had an interesting conversation with some folks about Breece Hall. One of my big red flags here, he avoids contact more than you would think a back of his size does. Multiple times on tape, I saw him actually twist and turn his back away from taking hits. It was a very odd thing to see for me. I also saw him go out of bounds along the sideline. Instead of scrapping out an extra yard or two, he chose to step out of bounds, avoid the hit. I don't know if this was just something that I caught more on the sample size of tape that I had, or if this is an issue for Breece Hall long term, but it's certainly something I'm going to be paying attention to here going into the 2021 college football season. We're going to go back to the quarterback position. This is a super flex draft, and there are going to be a good amount of quarterbacks. I currently have 4 to 5 quarterbacks here pegged out to be potential day one selections in the 2022 NFL draft. So certainly this could move up a decent amount. But I'm coming in here, this is my board, and I am high on Jaden Daniels, all right? I may end up backing off of this take later on, but at least for now, I like his tape. I've talked about him a ton. I think he has the dual athletic upside that we undervalue so consistently when it comes to Devy prospects. He has a nice arm. He has crisp mechanics, a clean throwing motion. He looks to pass first. Despite being very mobile and very athletic, he looks to pass first, and he displays a high level of competitive toughness. I'm not going to repeat myself. I went in depth on Jayden Daniels a few episodes back here on the Rookie Big Board, but I'm high on Jayden Daniels, and I'm willing to put him at 106 here in this mock draft. I got to tell you, at a 10 analyst, I'm probably the only one taking him at pick 6, but this is my mock draft, so I'm taking him at pick 6 here. Moving on here to number 7, this is Keaton Slovis. Keaton Slovis, it's the tale of two quarterbacks when it comes to this guy. You go back to 2019 tape, he looked like he could have been the 101 in this class, and a lot of folks did have him as the 101 in that particular class after 2019. He showed tremendous anticipation, a clean, a consistent, a powerful pocket passer that could fit the ball into any window, protected the ball well, threw with a ton of confidence. In 2022, and there were a variety of factors for USC. Maybe it was his health. Maybe it was USC's shortened season. Maybe he just didn't play as well as he did the season before. But Keaton Slovis did not look confident. He didn't look healthy, and he was a totally different quarterback in 2020. So that's why he's moved down here on the board. He absolutely has the potential to rise back into the Spencer Rattler, Sam Howell tier here in this quarterback class. But at this point in time, 107 feels about right for a quarterback with a high potential, but a lot of question marks. All right, moving on to 108 here. Here's the running back I alluded to somewhat subtly earlier, and that's Eric Gray out of Oklahoma. Eric Gray right now is slightly above Breece Hall in Rookie Big Board rating, and I want to point out this is not a huge difference, all right? Eric Gray is a 7.6 in the Rookie Big Board rating right now out of 10. That's a 1 to 10 scale, and 7.6 is good. That's a projected weekly starter for fantasy football. Remember, Rookie Big Board rating, or RBBR, is a fantasy football number, and Breece Hall is a 7.5, so they are so very close to each other. But with Eric Gray, I see an explosive runner. He hits the hole hard whenever he was given space at Tennessee, which was not often. He's a fearless runner that takes on SEC linebackers consistently. He has a unique blend of tenacity and smoothness to his game. It's not a combination you often see in backs, but I really like Eric Gray. He has nice size to him. He has clean footwork, solid vision, which allowed him to find a way forward, even the most blown up plays in 2020. And here's the thing you have to understand about the Tennessee offense and the way Eric Gray was operating within it in the 2020 season. They knew, defenses knew, Tennessee consistently run on first down, run on second down, throw on third down. If you don't get the completion, you punt, which more often than not was what was happening. So SEC defenses were loading the box, 7 guys, 8 guys in the box pretty consistently. They knew Eric Gray, if he was on the field, remember they rotated him on and off of Ty Chandler, they knew if he was on the field, he was probably getting the ball in the A-gap or the B-gap. You have to imagine that Oklahoma's offensive line is going to give him more space to operate. It's going to be less predictable. Eric Gray, 1,000-plus yard rusher this year. I feel confident saying that. I'm high on him. I think he's going to ride that momentum to declare for the 2022 draft, and I peg him in here as the 108 in a rookie draft. All right, moving on here to 109. You got to think there's a lot of wide receiver. I know if you're listening, you're saying there's a lot of wide receiver talent still sitting on the board, Matt. And I actually talked about this. If you want to head on over to the NFL Draft Bible Podcast Network and listen into the wide receiver college fantasy football preview episode, me and John Lobb go in depth a lot more on all of the wide receivers, I should say, that we're talking about on today's episode. But we're finally getting to another wide receiver here, and it's 109, and that's David Bell out of Purdue. There's a lot of directions. I got to be honest, 109, 110, 111 are very interchangeable here. But I'm going to give David Bell just a slight tick up because I think he has the wider range of outcomes, which gives him more upside. He's an interesting wide receiver to study. He's a big-bodied wideout that possesses a level of speed that's hard to ignore. Now, I should say, when I say he's big-bodied, he plays big-bodied. He's not quite as big as Trey Lon Burks or Drake London or some of these other really tall wideouts, but he plays with a big body here. He has nice muscle. The way he carries his muscle on his body is really compact and it's really efficient. He's got tremendous hands. He displays great ball tracking ability. I really love his ball tracking ability. Now, here's a little bit of a catch-22 here. He has good contested catch ability, but at times, I think he makes the play harder than he has to be because I don't think he separates well before the catch point. And if you listen to me, that is a yellow flag when it comes to my wide receivers. It's one of the things that I didn't like about Rashad Bateman, and it's one of the things that creates a real gap in value for folks who really study rookies, really look into film, and who just watch the highlights. And that was one of the things. You see a big contested catch guy, and you're like, look at this monster. He's throwing up big highlights. He's getting these contested catches. And then once you really watch the reps over and over and over again on film, and you start to realize that, yeah, he's making nice contested catch, but he really should be separating before the catch point, because when you translate that to the NFL, when defensive backs are stronger, they read the passes better, they're taller, they have better athletic and vertical ability, you stop winning those contested catch balls, especially if you're not coming in at 6'3 and 6'4, which David Bell is not. So I want to see David Bell in 2021 show the ability to separate more consistently before the catch point. If he does that, he has the ability to lock in wide receiver 2 status because he is such a tremendous athlete, a great combination of size, and he has tremendous hands and ball tracking ability. Moving on here to number 10, so this is the 110 selection, and it's going to be Trey Lon Burks. Man, I got to tell you, watching Burks live was fun last year. Watching his film, oh man, that is a fun film review. Here's the thing. Burks is fun, and he's still raw. You could tell he still has a ton of developing to do. He moves very well for a wideout of his size. He is 230 pounds, 6'3", 230 pounds, and Arkansas uses him so creatively. All right, they lined him up split in. They lined him up along the boundary. They put him in the backfield. They lined him up in a running back type position. They put him in motion often. This guy's 230, all right? I will repeat that. And he plays so well. He has a dynamic level of athleticism. He is a physical wideout. He battles through contact over the middle of the field. I think he creates subtle separation with powerful handwork before the catch. And I know this isn't always the most exciting for fantasy football, but he's a reliable run blocker. He seals the edge really well. He's not afraid to get physical. He's not exactly the fastest burner type guy, but he runs with a smoothness downfield. Now, his route tree is pretty simple. I definitely want to see him develop a more technically refined route tree, and I want to see Arkansas use him in better ways. Hopefully, KJ Jefferson allows for that a little bit more than Felipe Franks did, but Trey Lon Burks, definitely somebody that I'm really excited about. Now, at this point, you're probably thinking there's a pretty obvious player left out of the conversation at the wide receiver spot, and that's going to be Garrett Wilson at 111. And listen, Garrett Wilson, I have him as a 7.3 rookie big board rating. That's the same as David Bell, and it's actually one higher. It's 0.1 higher than Trey Lon Burks. So all of these guys are very interchangeable. I just think at the end of the day, and I like Garrett Wilson. I have him projected as a fantasy football weekly starter. I have him projected as a top 50 NFL selection. So I'm not knocking Garrett Wilson at all. I just think when it gets to NFL draft time, the athleticism of a guy like Burks might push him a little bit higher. And I think Wilson's consistency is high floor. We see it all the time. It might just slide him a little bit lower, but that doesn't make him a bad prospect at all. He's consistent. He's going to be highlighted in one of the most dangerous passing attacks in the country there in the Ohio State Buckeyes. They primarily had him line up split in. I believe he will be playing in that slot role. He really works the underneath of the field. He's running drags. He runs a nice post route. He runs along the seam very well. I could see NFL teams being interested in utilizing him in that way. He's a fluid athlete. He has good contact balance with the ball in his hands. So like I said, I think he's a really solid player. He's got really consistent hands, really reliable wideout. And so if you get him at 111, we see this all the time. The wide receiver value that falls to the back end of the first round, high end of the second round. One more selection here in the mock draft, and it might not be the one you expect, but I'm high on Kyren Williams, the running back out of Notre Dame. So I have him here as the final selection in this mock draft. He's a well-rounded back with the potential for a long career in the NFL. Now, he's a little undersized for running backs, I know, but it's not significant. He's 5'9", 195, so a little bit shorter than you'd like. You'd like to see him closer to 6 foot. That 200 marker seems to be that number that everybody wants the running backs to be at. I think that's an easy number for him to obtain here over the next 8 months before the combine. I think he can add 5 to 10 pounds. And I think he, really reflects having that physical ability and strength, running in between the tackles. He navigates really well in the A gap, in the B gap. And for me, he has really clean footwork. He navigates around the field with ease. I see him, and I don't, always throw out comps, but just kind of his physicality, the way that he navigates well in between the tackles. I see some Mark Ingram in his game, and that's definitely high praise. I can see Kyren Williams maybe not having as high of a ceiling as the running backs like Isaiah Spiller, Breece Hall, or Eric Gray, but I think he's got a nice, consistent NFL career ahead of him, and that is nothing to shake your head at from a fantasy football perspective. So that is my first-round rookie mock draft here. I'm going to recap it quickly, and then I'm also going to quickly reference some of the guys that, definitely were in consideration for this rookie draft, but I have Spencer Rattler here coming in at 101, Sam Howell 102, Chris Alave really outperforming for a wide receiver going 103, Isaiah Spiller and Breece Hall 104, 105, Jayden Daniels, Keaton Slovis 106, 107, Eric Gray 108, David Bell, Trey Lon Burks, Garrett Wilson 109 through 111, and Kyren Williams finishing out the first round with the 112. Now, looking over to the rookie big board here, Phil Drakovic is somebody who I expect to rise. I expect him to be a first-round selection here for fantasy football drafts. That is not the consensus opinion here, so I didn't want to put him in. But just so you know, on the rookie big board right now, he is 6th overall with an RBBR of 7.8. Some other guys that are on the brink, Carson Strong could definitely play his way up into first-round consideration. I can absolutely see John Mechie with a high production level rising in. Mechie right now is 15th on the big board. Malik Willis, if he really develops, I think he could be a first-round selection. I'm not as high on Malik Willis as most folks. Justin Ross is an interesting one. I have a nice film evaluation for Justin Ross, but I do have a late day 2 NFL draft selection for him just because I don't know how the NFL is going to feel about the injury history. And so Justin Ross is 17th right now on the rookie big board because projected NFL draft capital is a part of the formula. However, talent-wise, he is certainly in the same conversation as Bell, Burks, and Wilson, without a doubt. Some other names that you might have wanted to see, a guy like Samir White, again, very talented, but 2 knee injuries for Samir White. Jarian Ealy is a guy who I do think will rise. I got to tell you, I left with a decent amount of questions on Drake London's tape. I think he plays more like an undersized athletic tight end than he does an oversized athletic wideout. So we'll see with Drake London. Certainly a lot of different players that you can make the argument for. I'm happy to take comments or feedback on players that you think maybe I took a little bit too high in this mock draft, players that should have been included, whether I mentioned them at the end or not, or players that you are higher on. I'm happy for all the feedback. I appreciate you listening to this episode of the Rookie Big Board. As always, remember, if you want access to the Rookie Big Board, my rankings, Devy, Dynasty, Rookie, my 2021 season projections, all of that is available at patreon.com/TheFFEducator.